to be our reader. And welcome to High Plains Saturday morning group. We are reading a section today entitled The Fear of Redemption. And in the Orthodox use of the term, to be redeemed is a good thing, is to find your way back home and be redeemed once again. So the idea of fearing redemption is a reversal of what one might think of redemption. And so I'll spend a moment understanding that. So if we start with an assumption that we're experiencing a crazy world and respond to a crazy world with an insane reaction, that becomes an insane thought system in response to the crazy world. And this insanity, we know through A Course in Miracles, is all an illusion where everything is confused and distorted. It's like a matrix of a false world. And so in that world, everything's upside down. And thus, instead of embracing redemption, we fear redemption. And so that's one way to begin to think about it. Much of what we will read today, just like the fear of redemption, is counterintuitive. It's not what you might expect. It's a byproduct of a world that's all been twisted and distorted through separation and fear and guilt. So, Kim, when you're ready.
You may wonder why it is so crucial that you look upon your hatred and realize its full extent. You may also think that it would be easy enough for the Holy Spirit to show it to you and to dispel it without the need for you to raise it to awareness yourself. Yet there is one more obstacle you have interposed between yourself and the atonement. We have said that no one will countenance fear if he recognizes it. Yet in your disordered state of mind, you are not afraid of fear. You do not like it, but it is not your desire to attack that really frightens you. You are not seriously disturbed by your hostility. You keep it hidden because you're more afraid of what it covers. You could look even upon the ego's darkest cornerstone without fear. If you did not believe that, without the ego, you would find within yourself something you fear even more. You're not really afraid of crucifixion. Your real terror is of redemption.
Okay, so this might be a bit confusing at first, understandably so, whereas a number of ideas here that are not thoughts that we would welcome, such as to look upon our hatred, to look upon the ego's darkest cornerstones, and to the idea that we're really not disturbed by our hostility. So to speak, we can learn to live with our hostility. What the Course has just said, what really is a concern is our return to love. And so the way we can understand that is from the ego's point of view. This is entirely true. The ego is deeply concerned about our return to love. The ego will tolerate hostility and hatred, but will not tolerate the idea of you're uniting your being with love. And so there are two sides of this coin, and you just have to know which side to look upon when we're reading this material. So the other thing that a message in this first paragraph is about looking upon the existence of these ideas buried in your own subconscious mind. And the ego would not have you look, would have you keep things hidden as a mystery so that you be unconscious and confused by all this psychological content. And what we're told in the Course of Miracles is that in order to heal, it is crucial that you look upon this hatred, this ancient hatred. It's not, we would say it's not personal. It's not part of your individual narrative. It's part of a universal ego narrative. To heal, it's crucial you look upon this hatred and realize its full extent and raise it to your awareness so that you can change your mind about it. As long as it remains hidden in the background, it will continue to operate as a false belief system and therefore influence all your perception. So when we refer to the ego's darkest cornerstones, where fear resides, this is what we mean. Is we mean an ancient hatred, a fear of love, a fear of God that it existed before you were physically born into this world and became part of the thought system that we all innocently joined into without understanding fully what it was that we were joining. Sandra?
You might say that we've been programmed as a species to see mistakes and deal with them with punishment and condemnation instead of correction. So that's where the judgment came in too, and it's our whole species. So for us to do this work, we're really, turning. I mean, the world is upside down, but from the people around us, it looks like we're turning everything upside down.
Yes. Yes, it does. And it's one of the reasons why it requires spiritual courage to walk forward in this program, because the world would not support it anyway at all. It seems contrary to the insanity of the world. And so you have a choice. So there you have a choice. You can either just fit in with the insanity of the world and make that your experience here, or you can begin to bring these things out into the light and question them and choose another way so that you do not reinforce the insanity in your own mind.
But that's the fear for me, is the fear of not fitting in and not belonging anywhere. So it's not so much, for me, the fear is not so much my awakening. It's more, where am I going to fit in here?
I understand. And although we can't go into it completely right now, Sandra, you're going to fit in with the entire sonship, with all of creation. You're going to fit in with the light, the truth of forgiveness, and eternal love and light. It may not be the most popular theme here, but you're fitting in with something far bigger than the craziness of this world. Julie, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was inspired by what Sandra was saying, and kind of like well, I don't know. I got to hear the same way I kind of got to 12 step, which was I was at the end of the road of what my capacity to manage my understanding of myself, how I got here, whatever a God was. I was at the end of that road. And so I knew that the way that I was experiencing the world I knew wasn't working. And I knew that this was a way to expand and hopefully correct or reveal to me what was possible in terms of a relationship with a higher power, which my limited experience in the illusory world, I knew that was my biggest problem. That's what led me here. And this opened all of that up for me. And I thought a minute ago that would make sense. I'm not sure it does.
Thanks for trying. Yeah, we honor everyone's ability to verbalize and message these ideas that are still emerging more clearly into our minds. So thank you, Julie. We appreciate you. Noelle?
Cassandra, you fit in right here. And any fellowship, to borrow an AA term, where the people believe in the higher power and giving over ourselves to it. And there are more and more I am finding every time I have the courage to say, oh, I'm doing A Course in Miracles. They say, oh, oh, oh. Or they say, gee, what's that? And so I can explain a little, and usually there are at least a couple of nods of understanding.
Indeed. And stay tuned, because things are rapidly growing and changing in terms of more and more people saying, what is that? Tell me more. Heather?
Yeah, I want to just validate what she's saying also, because there's several of us are feeling that. It's like the more we grow, the more we feel lonely it gets, and we feel like where's the tribe? Where are the other people that are feeling like this, and are we alone? And yes, we have our little group here. So I was just like Noelle, I was starting to really appreciate the group we have again, and say, it says when you go here forward from here, you go with mighty companions with you, and I just love to think, this group is becoming my mighty companions. And yes, we may be small, and there's other people we definitely want to, extend, but I so appreciate at least what we have here, that we're mighty companions moving on together as we leave this world behind that looks so ridiculous now. It is a lonely journey, but we at least have each other. And like Noelle says, when we're moved, we give the word out for other people to join us. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Heather. And so there's this group, and there are also thousands of other groups, and some of them meet in outside the United States and speak different languages and are in different time zones. So for obvious reasons, they're not a great fit. Some of them have different focal points and work on different levels and try to fuse this with other teachings. It's all good. They're part of the awakening, surely, as much as everyone else. So there are, you can see this in broader and broader terms that may be outside the realm of your current experience. But please trust that there are these, as Heather said, mighty companions that are following along the path with us. Susie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that for me, it's the least lonely I have ever been. I feel incredibly connected just because of everything that, all my thinking's changing. I was always felt so separate. So now, even if it's just one person or two people or three people inside of myself, I feel so much more connected than I ever have, and so much less alone. So I don't know. Just wanted to throw that in.
I'm really glad you did, Susie. Thank you. It all depends on how you look at it. All right, we're going to go on. So hold your comments for until we get another paragraph in here.
Under the ego's dark foundation is a memory of God. And it is of this that you are really afraid. For this memory would instantly restore you to your proper place. And it is this place that you have sought to leave. Your fear of attack is nothing compared to your fear of love. You would be willing to look even upon your savage wish to kill God's Son if you did not believe that it saves you from love. For this wish caused the separation, and you have protected it because you do not want the separation healed. You realize that by removing the dark cloud that obscures it, your love for your Father would impel you to answer his call and leap into heaven. You believe that attack is salvation because it would prevent you from this. For still deeper than the ego's foundation and much stronger than it will ever be is your intense and burning love of God and his for you. This is what you really want to hide.
Mm-hmm. And so we get to the, shall we call it pay dirt? We're digging down deeper than the superficial layers of the ego into where the real issue lies. And Jeff, in simple terms, it's the fear of love. And one would say, well, why would we fear love? Well, that's exactly the right question. That's the one that has been hidden from us. Few of us have spent any time questioning why would we fear love? We're going to bring that out when it turns out the ego is heavily invested in the fear of love and has an entire mythology or narrative that it wants us to adopt for ourselves that has to do with the fear of love. And so the fear of love, underneath the fear of love, we're going to go one layer. The fear of love is still an illusion of the ego. So the metaphor here is that we're digging down into the depths of your unconscious mind. And we dig down very deep and we get to this point, the fear of love, but we are still at the level of fear. We are still at an ego cornerstone. Beneath that is the gold, the treasure we seek, which is the memory of God, which is the restoration of ourselves to our source. As it calls here, you'll find your intense and burning love for God and his for you. So there's a metaphor. Dig down to the fear of love, and underneath that is what the ego really wants you never to look upon, which is an intense desire to unite with the Creator. It makes perfect sense in spiritual terms that you would want to unite with your Creator. And so the barrier, now this is important, folks, because we're going to deal with this in chapter 19 head on. The barrier to our uniting, the final barrier to uniting with our Creator is the fear of love, which becomes a fear of God it's not fear of the true God, it's fear of God as the ego wants us to think about God. It's the illusion of God the ego promotes And fear associated with that acts as an obstacle to our even embracing the idea of reuniting with the Creator. And so I am confident this is the most profound psychospiritual journey that humanity can go on, is to dig down to this level and realize there's something wrong down in the unconscious mind. It's a hidden darkness that fears love, and that it was placed there, as Sandra said, it's an ancient hatred. That affects the species. It's placed there as a part of the separation to keep us from even wanting to unite with the Creator. We had a couple hands up. Let's take one from Kim and then Sandra.
So I'm having a visceral reaction to this reading today, like jittery inside. So I know it's exactly what I need to hear. And what's coming up for me around this, because I'm experiencing what Heather was sharing about, like this loneliness and not really knowing my tribe. And what's coming up for me is about generational learning. Like, what word did you just use? Did you say historical?
Ancient hatred that affects the speech.
Ancient, but also I think so much of it is generational learning,
Right.
through my family of origin and everything that I learned, because I don't really have an awareness that I have a fear of love. Do you know what I mean? It
Right.
just feels like that's what I want is love. How could I fear that? But then when I do this reading, I'm like, this is spot on for me and exactly where I am. And I want this healed.
Yes.
I want this healed. And so I just needed to say that out loud, because literally in my insides right now are just jumpy.
That's great. Thank you for that declaration. Did you hear that? Kim said, I want this healed. That decision is our part is to make that decision. I want this healed. I am not going to put up with this infection of this ancient hatred in my mind. I'm going to see it through to my healing. Sandra?
So in my Jewish education, I was programmed to believe that God was a jealous and vengeful God, which was a mistake right then and there. So I was programmed to believe in an egoic God. And that's the love I'm afraid of, is egoic love. I'm not afraid of God's love. I'm afraid of egoic love because it's very painful.
It's a great distinction, Sandra. Thank you. I will give you credit for egoic love. Noelle?
I find what comes up is a host of excuses, like we were talking about before, idols, that when I look at the words, your intense and burning love of God and his for you, I think, oh, how could she it? I'm not worth it. This is bunk. All these different things. I'll just follow my nice lukewarm practice and be satisfied with that. I won't delve any deeper. But these words make me now want to delve deeper and recognize those idols for what they are.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for saying that, Noelle. You made the case for the fear of redemption, that I would just assume let it rest the way it is, versus waking up to that place that Kim got to, where she says, I want this healed. Julie?
Yeah, I just want to add briefly that I was born Jewish on my parents' side, which is a joke that Ram Dass says. Uh, and I had a very traditional Jewish upbringing, formal education, and all that. And Jonica, you know this about me, like that was one of the biggest obstacles to me allowing myself to feel okay and happy just the way I am, because I thought, boy, I do not line up with what I was taught a woman of my age and my upbringing should be today. And that means that because I can never reconcile that with the Jewish God that I was born and raised to believe in, I'll never be okay. And not for some reason, but dogged application of all the things that I do to try to be whole, all of that has finally shifted. And I'm not saying now that magically I know I line up with, that God of my youth, but I'm saying that I realize today that there's no more conflict. It all fits. And that was a huge miracle for me, because that was a big obstacle. Because when you're a little person, your parents are your God, and then whatever they tell you your God is, and it just loomed. And now it doesn't loom. Now it's a coexistence. So just wanted to testify to that.
Mhm. Thank you, Julie. Susie?
Yeah, this is just so good because for me, it's just such proof how there's 3 people on this call that are Jewish who have had completely different, you know, experiences. So that can't be real. That's just our perception. It's just what was taught to us, because I'm Jewish and I grew up with a loving God. So now it's just like, it's just what's the word, that none of that's real. There's only one truth. Truth is true, and that is it. So, everything that is is changeable is not real. So it's so much easier for me now to hear, oh, she grew up Jewish, but she grew up this way. She grew up Jewish. She grew up this way. No, you know what? I'm just going to follow the Course in Miracles. That's good. That works. And that is true. And I've experienced it all, where I've experienced nothing for real in the other, ways of my life. So this is just a fascinating conversation. For me, it's just all false perception, and we're moving into true perception. So that's it.
Mhm. Thank you. We're going to move on to the next paragraph and then circle back and get more comments.
In honesty, it is not harder for you to say I love than I hate. You associate love with weakness and hatred with strength. And your own real power seems to you as your real weakness. For you could not control your joyous response to the call of love. If you heard it, and the whole world you thought you made would vanish. The Holy Spirit then seems to be attacking your fortress, for you would shut out God, and he does not will to be excluded.
So there's 2 ideas I want to point out here. One is the idea of your magnetic attraction to the source of love. We're talking in truth now, not ego distortion. In truth, we are attracted to our source. We are of the same nature and being as our source. And so in truth, there is this strong attraction to the call of love. It's innate in your spiritual being, in truth. However, if you flip over to the ego's view of things, when we talk about these topics that threaten to uncover the ego's lies, and this is really important, you have to notice this, it seems as though Course in Miracles is attacking the ego's fortress. It seems as though this message is probing around the identity that we formed in this world, our fortress of ego identification. And many new students to A Course in Miracles encounter this because it's the first time in their life they've had kind of like a spiritually loving and benevolent message that calls into question their entire earthly journey or the perceptual system they've been using in their earthly journey. And so there's always these two sides of the coin. That in truth, the Holy Spirit is not attacking you or your identity. The Holy Spirit sees you and your identity for in truth for what you are. But to the ego, Holy Spirit seems like the opposition. And the more you remain with this program, the more we become trusting of the Holy Spirit, so that when these thoughts of grievances or attack or fear rise in our mind, instead of keeping them for ourselves and protecting them, we gladly offer them over to the Holy Spirit in the same thrust that Kim said, I want this healed. I am not going to save this grievance in my mind for another day. I'm offering it up. So we learn to trust the Holy Spirit for that healing. She's not attacking our fortress. She's dismantling the foundation that the ego has built its fortress on. It's a dismantling of it piece by piece. It'll be seen to be no place to make your home. Noel?
Maybe my fear is by this dismantling, I fear I'm losing my identity.
Yes.
Now, granted, it's the false identity, but it's a matter of once again and again and again, that word surrender, yield. I step back and let you lead the way. All of that. One other thing I'd like to address, the Old Testament God. He wasn't only vengeful, but look at so many of the things he did. One, the manna and the quail. Two, he saved the firstborn children. Three, he led them forth by, what was it, a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Four, he led them to the Red Sea and then decimated the Egyptians. So five, the Psalms of David.
Okay.
So, there's a complementarity of, and I'm sorry other people have grown up with the singular vengeful God idea, but I'm sure there are plenty of other places too in the Old Testament that attest his.
Okay. I want to come back to something Noel said, because this is really psychologically critical. It's a fear of loss of identity. And it is true that as the false ego identity is dismantled, well, then that's not useful anymore. And therefore, there is a vital choice before you, and that is to wholly embrace the identity that the Holy Spirit offers you, to completely embrace and fall in love with the identity the Holy Spirit offers you. It is essential to, matter of fact, that's where the real work becomes, is to fall in love with the truth of who you are. And that's where your attention needs to be, is to fall in love with the truth of where you are. To fail to do that, to fall in love with the truth, is to be left with a sense of nothingness. The old identity is gone, and there's no new identity to trust and embrace. That's a loss of self-awareness, of self-concept, which is it's terribly troubling. That's what they try to do in a cult, is strip you of all of your identity system so that you have no identity but the one that the cult offers. So I don't want to go into that, but it is true that one experiences a question of, what am I? Now that I'm not the ego, what am I? And the solution is there, accept the answer that the Holy Spirit gives you to that. Felicia?
Hi, yeah, really good class today. Thanks, Jonica. I was just thinking about my experience, what led me to the course, and I'm so glad that I'm here, is because I really did fear love. I can look back and see that I feared the love of God, but it was not because of losing an identity that I had. It was because of a lack. I felt like in my mind that I would never be able to add up to what God would expect of me. I thought that he would ask me to do things or act in a certain way that I wasn't capable of. And so it was a lack of trust. And I don't know if I can put this into words for it to make sense. But so I didn't like and I didn't want to identify with who I was, but I didn't really know how to change, because I was brought up with that if you think it, you did it. And I had some bad thoughts, and so I felt like I'm just doomed. Um, call it mental illness, call it whatever you want to call it, but I mean, I feel like it's all mental illness when you're not connected to source. But I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I'm just so glad that I came into the course to be able to learn that is love, and that it's not me doing anything. It's me just surrendering and listening to the right mind, and giving up what I thought all my old ideas of life was really about. And I heard people say, like, in going back into the 12 steps of the program, heard people say things like, well, if I get rid of all these resentments or, my character defects, I won't be nothing but the hole in the donut. Well, I wouldn't like the donut. Give me the hole. The hole's got to have something better. If that makes any sense. That's just my simple way of explaining that there was nothing about my life that I enjoyed. And so much has turned around since I've been in the course, that it is enjoyment of the surrendering of that. I don't know, but God does. And hopefully that made some sense. Just something. It made sense in my mind. It's just when I say the words, they come out kind of crooked sometimes.
Thank you, Felicia. Sandra?
This goes so perfectly with the lesson today, and the part of, the introduction to the lesson is, what is sin? And here we are. The lesson today is the Son of God is my identity. So I don't identify with being a sinner. If I identified with being a sinner, then I'm going to extend that frequency of sin. I'm going to aspire to be a sinner if I identify with being a sinner. I'm going to behave like a sinner. My identity is a child of God. And so I aspire to behave like a child of God. I mean, there's a complete difference between behaving like a sinner and behaving like a child of God. It's complete different frequencies. And yeah, so this goes perfectly with the lesson.
Thank you. Susie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, you were talking about falling in love with, the course or peace or, that, for me, and it says it in the course, it's an experiential course. So for me, the lessons are crucial. I have to do them over and over and over again, and then I will experience what the lessons are asking me to do. And having had those experiences of peace and love rather than fear and hell and anxiety, I started to fall in love with those feelings. So I had to experience it, and I can only experience it by doing the lessons over and over and following the directions. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. We're going to go on.
You have built your whole insane belief system because you think you would be helpless in God's presence. And you would save yourself from his love because you think it would crush you into nothingness. You're afraid it would sweep you away from yourself and make you little because you believe that magnitude lies in defiance and that attack is grandeur. You think you have made a world God would destroy, and by loving him, which you do, you would throw this world away, which you would. Therefore, you have used the world to cover your love, and the deeper you go into the blackness of the ego's foundation, the closer you come to the love that is hidden there. And it is this that frightens you.
So let's deal with the two ideas. One, Noel spoke to earlier, the fear of loss of identity. As it says here, you are afraid that if you united with this infinite great creator, it would sweep you away from yourself. Who are we next to this infinity of a creator? It would sweep you away from yourself and make you little. That's the ego's point of view, that the creator is an opposition. It's an opposition. It's a polarity. In truth, it will unite us with our true self and not make us little, but being united with the entirety, we become complete. So that's well describes this fear of the loss of identity. The ego is afraid that its little tiny representation would be lost. And in truth, the ego's representation would be lost. The other thing that we want to recognize is, how do we defend ourselves from that fear, that loss? We use our understanding, our each of us has a mythology of what we believe is the meaning of life, what love is about, what life is about, and who we are. We have a perceptual system that we have relied on to guide us through this life. And we use the world to cover over the truth of our being. And as odd as it seems, we use the world to defend against love, to cover over the truth of our being. And it's the truth of our being that frightens the ego. This is the fear of love, the fear of not love as defined by your past experiences, but the fear of an infinite source of love that comes at you from every direction, from every person, with every encounter. The ego is deeply afraid of all those holy instants, of all that healing and of all that transformation. It will lose control if you were to fully embrace love as your true self. And so it frightens the ego. It's the biggest fright of all. And again, we'll look at it more specifically in chapter 19 because it must be dealt with. It's the final obstacle to the awareness of love's presence, is the fear that is associated in the ego's mind with joining with the Creator. Kim?
You can accept insanity because you made it, but you cannot accept love because you did not. You would rather be a slave of the crucifixion than a son of God in redemption. Your individual death seems more valuable than your living oneness, for what is given you is not so dear as what you made. You are more afraid of God than of the ego, and love cannot enter where it is not welcome. But hatred can, for it enters of its own volition and cares not for yours.
Mm-hmm. You can accept insanity because you made it, and in the sense that our past is now seen as being terribly confused and insane. It's familiar. We would, to use a metaphor, it's the devil we know. It's the one that we can tell a story about and identify with that story. And so, in a kind of live and let live, I'll just go with the flow and live with the world the way it is. I can accept insanity because I've lived a life of insanity. But the opposite of that is not part of our past, not part of our narrative. And the opposite is a life of love coming at you from every direction and in every situation and every encounter. That's something the ego cannot control and therefore is frightening. Julie?
Yeah, so this is really what Kim just read is what my recent experience is. And so for me, why I feel like I've crossed over into this miracle life is because I realize the way I get to have it is by choosing it. I was the one blocking it all along. All I have to do is choose it, and boom, there it is. Everything changes. So anyhow, that's just my recent experience. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Julie. Beautiful. We're so glad you did.
Me too.
That's why in the course it keeps saying, choose once again, choose once again, choose once again.
You must look upon your illusions and not keep them hidden, because they do not rest on their own foundation. In concealment, they appear to do so and thus they seem to be self-sustained. This is a fundamental illusion on which the others rest. For beneath them, and concealed as long as they are hidden, is a loving mind that thought it made them in anger. And the pain in this mind is so apparent when it is uncovered that its need of healing cannot be denied. Not all the tricks and games you offer it can heal it, for here is a real crucifixion of God's Son.
So there's this idea of building a structure on sinking sand. This is a terrible mistake to build a structure on watery sand that will collapse under the weight of its own structure. Well, that's what the ego has done. It has formulated an identity and a view of the world, a whole system of explanation that is structured upon sinking sand. And this readings that we do here as a group are intended to expose that this it seems like the ego is built on some kind of lasting foundation, but in truth, it cannot sustain itself. The weight of it is too much. And so in our metaphor, we have to dig down deeper to the bedrock, to what is solid. A solid foundation has to be the basis that we anchor our lives and our existence on. And so a solid foundation must be established in our awareness, and that would be our foundation as beings created by love, in love, and for the purposes of extending love. Noelle?
First, I really like the tricks and games, which nails my avoidances. But second, I'd like clarification on the third sentence in the second paragraph. For beneath them and concealed as long as they are hidden, here's the part, is the loving mind that thought it made them in anger. Why would a loving mind make anything in anger?
It doesn't initially appear to make any sense. Initially, the concept is, Noelle, at some level that is not conscious to us, that we chose to separate, and that we accepted that idea into our own mind. We allowed it, we permitted it, we embraced it at some level. And before that, our mind was only love. And then we chose to separate an alternative path. And so in order to heal, we have to get back to where the problem started, which was when we chose wrongly. We chose separation. And so we have, and that part of our mind, Noelle, your most holy mind, is concealed by all the mythology of this world and of the ego and of separation. It's the memory of God is concealed from our awareness. And so the goal of this course is that we, together with the Holy Spirit, dig down to the point where we expose the bedrock, the foundation, or the memory of God, which is which is our most loving mind. So I think more can be said about all these metaphors, but I think we should just leave that go for there. But on top of that loving mind is this pain from having separated, having chosen separation. And when this pain is uncovered, its need of healing cannot be denied. It was so lovely when Kim said, I want this to be healed. So when that pain, which is so apparent, is uncovered, its need of healing cannot be denied. No matter what the tricks and games that may be offered, that this is the moment of truth when we uncover that this cannot be who we truly are. This is about a re-identification with your true self. And the ego's goal is that you never come near these topics, that you live your life in the shallows, superficially, floating along, never quite, occasionally asking questions, but tolerating superficial answers offered by the world. The ego would have us adjust ourselves to the pain of existence at that level and never dig down to these more profound existential issues. Sandra?
In the Course, it says, I believe, that our greatest power is our power of decision. So it's, what do I choose? Do I choose to align with the ego, or do I choose to align with the truth of what God says I am, which is not an ego? So, and that's our greatest power, is that choice.
Yes, indeed. And nothing in all the universe can take that power of your mind away from you. We'll go on.
And yet he is not crucified. Here is both his pain and his healing, for the Holy Spirit's vision is merciful and his remedy is quick. Do not hide suffering from his sight, but bring it gladly to him. Lay before his eternal sanity all your hurt and let him heal you. Do not leave any spot of pain hidden from his light. And search your mind carefully for any thought you may fear to uncover. For he will heal every little thought you have kept to hurt you.
Now go on. For he will heal every little thought you have kept to hurt you and cleanse it of its littleness, restoring it to the magnitude of God. So this is the guidance we have. I want to make this practical instead of abstract and theoretical. I suspect this will happen to you this week. And that is that some aspect of your life, whether you think of it as now or in the past, some aspect where you don't rest well with it. It's unforgiven. A grievance, a guilt, a judgment. It can be directed towards yourself, or it can be directed outwards towards somebody else. They can be seen as the ones to blame. That thought will start to creep over your conscious mind. You'll get a glimpse of it. There it is. And it's a thought that you've had before. It's not a stranger. As it starts crossing your mind, there's a choice to be made. And one of the choices that the ego would have you is to quickly repress it and, so to speak, push it out of your awareness. We're not going to look at that. Store it for later. That would be one choice. That would be, and its implications are obvious. Another would be to dance with it and play with it. Julie uses the word to embrace it and to make it your own and become totally wrapped up. So if I find somebody else to be guilty and I'm in judgment of them, I can dance with that all day, and just be sure that they're the ones to blame for the problems that are going on. So now I've totally absorbed my attention and given the power of my mind to this judgment of guilt there. Neither of those choices, to amplify the signal or suppress that signal, neither of those, you don't need the Holy Spirit for. She's not involved in either of those. The third choice is the one that is guided by this course. And that is that as it crosses there, you recognize it. You, so to speak, look at it. Oh, there's that guilty thought about my relationship with so-and-so that's so troubled. Holy Spirit, and then the next words in your mind are, Holy Spirit, I'm determined to heal this. Here you are. Please take this thought and transform it for me. Guide me into complete forgiveness. I don't know how to do so myself. And thank you for your guidance in my healing. So it's a choice. This all happens, by the way, in a second of time. And so it's easy to suppress real quickly or to dance with it for a while. It's easy to forget. And this is why we need to become practitioners of mind training so that we are alert to our need for healing and we take advantage of these opportunities. So when it happens, when it starts to rise, do not hide the suffering from the Holy Spirit's sight. Lay it before his eternal sanity. Lay all your hurt there and let him heal you. Don't leave any spot of pain hidden from his sight. And search your mind carefully for the thoughts you may fear to uncover. Because many of these things, like I say, they happen very quickly and there are darkness. This is a question of what do we do with our darkness? They are our darkness, and we are to bring them to the Holy Spirit and humbly ask to turn them over to the Holy Spirit and let her be in charge of our healing. Sandra?
What I absolutely, absolutely love about this Holy Spirit stuff is that I'm told to have a relationship with Holy Spirit, and I'm told to bring it all to the Holy Spirit, which is all my anger, rage, judgment, everything I bring to the Holy Spirit. And she lets me. She's like, bring it on, bring it on. And then I say, show me the truth. That's it. Show me the truth, because I'm willing to be humble enough to say, I don't know whether my take on this is correct or not. All I know is that I feel awful because I'm judging and I'm angry and I'm resentful and I've got all this stuff. And people have said that the Course in Miracles is spiritual bypass, that you're not, you bypass those feelings and you go right to the truth. And it's not true, because the relationship with the Holy Spirit is all about sharing my feelings, giving it all to the Holy Spirit, sharing my feelings and my judgments and everything, and simply saying, show me the truth. And then I can go about my day. I can, once I turn it over and really turn it over, because a lot of times I turn it over and I take it back. So when I really turn it over, I can feel all my feelings, turn it over to the Holy Spirit, ask to be shown the truth, and go paddleboarding. I'm complete.
Mhm. Thank you. Very passionate. Kim?
Beneath all the grandiosity you hold so dear is your real call for help. For you call for love to your Father as your Father calls you to himself. And that place which you have hidden, you will only to unite with the Father in loving remembrance of him. You will find this place of truth as you see it in your brothers. For though they may deceive themselves like you, they long for the grandeur that is in them. And perceiving it, you will welcome it, and it will be yours. For grandeur is the right of God's Son, and no illusions can satisfy him or save him from what he is. Only his love is real, and he will be content only with his reality.
So we trust that underneath these superficial defense mechanisms of the ego that would cause us to fear love, we trust that underneath that is the bedrock, the foundation of truth. And it is a natural question to ask, how can I find and lay hold of this truth for myself? Not the words, but the experience of this truth, so that it's not just ideas. And the Course is very clear. You will find this place of truth in yourself as you see it in your brothers. And so this makes perfect sense. For having created a false sense of ourselves, that barrier acts as an obstacle for our seeing the truth within ourselves. And so it's both finding it in yourself and finding it in your brothers. It says you will find this place of truth as you see it in your brothers, or at the same time as you see it in your brothers. This is what a holy relationship is. This is what a moment of holy instant is. Miracles are relational. You will see it in yourself, not isolated because it's only in you, but because you have seen it also in your brother. Heather?
Yeah, that line is just echoing for me too, because that's what happened for me just now, listening to everybody's, share, Kim and Sandra and Felicia and everybody, and Susie and everybody share. It's like, as they're sharing, and I'm going through the same thing, I see this truth now. I see it because you've expressed it. I see the truth now, and I see it in you. And that helps me see it in me. Say, oh, that's what I'm suffering from too. It's like you're my mirrors, and I'm so grateful because this just is exactly what just happened for me. Sandra's saying, I just want the truth. Well, here it is. I get to see you going through it, and then I get to integrate that myself. So thank you all for being so transparent. I appreciate it so much.
Indeed. There's something really profound, miraculous happening in our group meetings, and that is how we're all learning from each other. And as Heather said, becoming mirrors for each other. and hearing in someone else's words the truth that is emerging in our own awareness. We've said it before, we're very grateful for all that we have here. Thank you, Holy Spirit, and thank you, my brothers and sisters.
Save him from his illusions, that you may accept the magnitude of your Father in peace and joy. But exempt no one from your love, or you will be hiding a dark place in your mind where the Holy Spirit is not welcome. And thus you will exempt yourself from his healing power. For by not offering total love, you will not be healed completely. Healing must be as complete as fear. For love cannot enter where there is one spot of fear to mar its welcome.
So maybe the thought that will arise in your mind this week that becomes your opportunity to heal is the exceptions you believe you have towards certain individuals who are identified as difficult or problems, and realize we view that as hiding a dark place in your mind where the light and love of the Holy Spirit is not welcome. And we highlight this not to make you feel uncomfortable, but to realize this is an opportunity to grow. And many of you have testified, and we know that on the other side of having carried somebody in our life that we had a long-term grievance with, being on the other side where it's forgiveness has swept over the relationship is truly freeing, truly transformative. And so view it as it comes up next time as an opportunity to heal, and accept it, give it over. And that's not to say that you have all the answers. Give it to the Holy Spirit, who surely understands many of these long-term grievances. It's a healing process. Our mind lets go of our grip on the grievance a little, one finger at a time, because it's a tight grip we've carried for a long time. Let go of it one finger at a time. Trust the Holy Spirit has this under control. She's got your back, but give it to her to guide in your healing so that your healing might be complete.
You who prefer separation to sanity cannot obtain it in your right mind. You were at peace until you asked for special favor, and God did not give it, for the request was alien to him, and you could not ask this of a father who truly loved his son. Therefore, you made of him an unloving father, demanding of him what only such a father could give. And the peace of God's Son was shattered, for he no longer understood his Father. He feared what he had made, but still more did he fear his real Father, having attacked his own glorious equality with him.
Mm-hmm. So this might be obscure here. There is a theme in A Course in Miracles, which would be called Your Ego's Plan to Make You Special. I abbreviate it Your Specialness Project. It's a lifelong project to make yourself into an image of your own intentions that is different and special And so here it refers to asking for special favors. It's a specialness project. We will deal with it more in detail later on, because you can't carry your specialness project through the gates of heaven. There's perfect equality inside the gates of heaven, and a plan to be different from others, whether better than or worse matters not. It's just that I'm just not like them. That specialness project, however it's defined, will need to be placed into the hands of the Holy Spirit, so that we let it go. But notice you were before the specialness project is the beginning of the separation. Before your specialness project, you were at peace. And then you ask to be different, meaning you chose, and this is unconscious choosing. We've been through this before. It's an existential choice that we've all made, to be separate. That once we made that, that's when loss of peace ushered in here. So we'll have more to say about that. It's touched on here just briefly, but we'll pick it up again in later chapters.
In peace, he needed nothing and asked for nothing. In war, he demanded everything and found nothing. For how could the gentleness of love respond to his demands except by departing in peace and returning to the Father? If the Son did not wish to remain in peace, he could not remain at all. For a darkened mind cannot live in the light, and it must seek a place of darkness where it can believe it is where it is not. God did not allow this to happen, yet you demanded that it happen and therefore believed that it was so.
So I'm going to leave that without comment, and we'll go on to the final paragraph.
To single out is to make alone, and thus make lonely. God did not do this to you. Could he set you apart knowing that your peace lies in his oneness? He denied you only your request for pain, for suffering is not of his creation. Having given you creation, he could not take it from you. He cannot but answer your insane request with the same answer that would abide with you in your insanity. And this he did. No one who hears his answer but will give up insanity, for his answer is the reference point beyond illusions, for which you can look back on them and see them as insane. But seek this place and you will find it, for love is in you and will lead you there.
Mm-hmm. So this might be one of the most profound paragraphs in the reading today. Early on today, several people mentioned the idea of loneliness, not knowing where your tribe is, and themes of that nature. And we don't want to dismiss that. We want to acknowledge that is a set of perceptions that occur to us. But and we also don't want to be confused by it. So here we are talking about thinking that we're different or special and need a special case. It's to have ourselves singled out to do that inevitably results, and most of this is unconscious, by the way. Everyone's plan to make yourself special is not something people are aware of. But the result of that is a sense of being alone. Okay, different, disconnected, separated from others. So that phenomena is very real in the ego's perceptual system. It feels very strong. Its source is based upon the belief of being separate and having being separate from others. How then do we heal from these things? Well, the Holy Spirit does have an answer for that, but it's not the answer that you would prescribe for yourself. Like that, the typical situation in this world is if you're lonely, well, then you fill the room up with a bunch of people who you like, and that heals the loneliness. And then after they've been there for a few hours and dinner is over, they leave, and you're back to with what you had before. So that's not healing. That's just a temporary lift of company and companionship. What the Holy Spirit has as a healing is something that you would not normally prescribe for yourself. And this takes a leap of faith to appreciate and understand. We'll call it the Holy Spirit's answer, his answer to this feeling of being alone. And we will attempt to describe it in many different ways here using different sets of words and analogies. Right now, we'll refer to it as he has an answer at a reference point or a vantage point. It is a place of understanding and illumination in your mind that you're never alone. Even if there's no body around. It's a reference point. It's an insight. Insight is to a sight within your spirit. It's something your soul can grasp, but your superficial awareness, this would make your superficial awareness will only validate physical objects in the room as being potentially connected to you. But your soul recognizes a connection that goes beyond distances and time and physical phenomena. So we'll call it a reference point beyond illusions. And from that reference point, your soul can look out or look back on all your illusions and realize that they are not true, that they're unfounded, that they're insane. And then you can choose to let them go, no longer invest in them. And the guidance in this course that's stated here and in many other places in different ways is that you should seek this place, this reference point. It's in the mind of the Holy Spirit. It's in your soul. Seek this reference point and you will find it, for the love is in you, and the love will lead you there. And so this is one way of talking about this soulful reference point that the Holy Spirit offers as a gift to each of us. We will say it again and again in different terms because it is in the language of the soul and not in the languages of ego or even of time and space. Seek but this reference point, this place where the answer lies, and you will find it, because love is committed to guiding you there. And that commitment never wavers. Kim?
I just wanted to share with everybody that I'm so grateful for this meeting today. I had a profound healing occur on this meeting, and I just wanted to testify about that. And I understand that it's because of everybody, the Holy Spirit, of course, but everybody joining here. And so I just have this unbelievable gratitude around it. So thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for saying so, Kim. We are co-creators together. Yes, we participate. We choose to come to these meetings. We choose to open our hearts and minds and souls to this. We're active, creative participants in this healing. And so, yes, the Holy Spirit is the supervisor, the mother spirit of it all, that it has us all embraced. But and we are the children, but we all have our part to play. And I'm so grateful when we can get together using technologies like this and play together and heal together. Thank you all. So until next time, my friends, peace be with you. Namaste.
Thanks, everybody. Wonderful meeting.
Thank you all. Thank you,
Thanks.
Kim, for reading.
Thanks, Kim.
Turn off the. Everybody see each other. Forgot to do that. Bye-bye, Felicia. Thank you.
Bye,
for being
Monica.
here.
Thanks so much. Great class. I really enjoyed it today.
Jeff, thank you for joining us today. Oh, we're not getting your audio again.